Ricardo Baretzky from Antwerp in Brussels. You're president of the European Centre for Information Policy and Security. You're an official advisor in the EU on counterterrorism and security. Now, you argue that the speed at which jihadists are developing their attacks is faster than the speed at which Europeans are responding and adapting their security systems.
Well, we have to understand that the terrorist organizations of today is not only very well trained, but they're very well acquainted with intelligence operations. And the way they do the operational system is pretty much the same as the major intelligence agencies in the world today, and they're compartmented. So what happens here is that they have an upper hand in a sense the way they structure the attacks. And that's a very dangerous thing if the counterintelligence departments, particularly CTU departments, do not understand what type of threat they're dealing with. You know, we have said before, and also has been confirmed by several other organizations in Europe, particularly recently from Europol confirmed, that it's new. This type of threats are new. And the way these type of attacks works is not known to the present operational system of the police and the military forces. Therefore, they have to pay specifically attention to what type of threat they are engaging with.
What is the biggest vulnerability in Europe if you had to pinpoint one particular area?
Well, critical infrastructure. I would say at this point in time, critical infrastructure is transportation, power supplies. Our cyber system is a bit of a problem across Europe. This is the three major factors that needs a radical step up. We have said already before a larger budget is necessary for cyber defense in Europe, which is of course very much lacking. And this issue is just but the tip of the iceberg.
And do you see Europe moving forward in the right direction?
That's a very good question. It's difficult to say at the same time. Have we seen increase in improvements? Yes, we have seen that. Is it moving in the right direction? I'm not so sure about that, particularly with the recent statements of proposals of integrating terrorist state returns to use them in the services and security services. The situation present is very dangerous if not understood. And are we going to fight this battle right? I'm not so sure about it. I'm very skeptical about it at the moment.
But surely the attacks and the ensuing trauma, both in Belgium and in France, will have sparked leaders into increased cooperation.
The problem here is that we are mixing politics with security forces, and that is something that we have seen in historical events, always having a negative effect. The politicians here have to understand that they need the experts on board. You know, just a few months before the Paris attack, I was in a meeting with a specific minister, and we literally showed the door. Yet they're on top of things. The politicians have to realize that the experts is willing to work together. But if they don't accept the willingness of the experts to work together, they're going to face bigger problems in the future.
And is that something, again, after the attack in Belgium in particular, is that something that you sense is changing? The reason I ask you the question again is because when those attacks were isolated in France and France was the only target, you know, that's one thing. When you realize that actually it's transnational, that might be something that would spur leaders into looking at this in a more united global way.
Well, this is what we said from beginning 2.5 years ago when we made the alerts already public. But the problem is where is it next? You know, is Netherlands next? Is Germany next? You know, we must understand. And the footprint of terrorism is to bring down the collective structure of security forces across Europe. So it's not specifically targeting one area. So it's certainly transnational and also international at the same time. But what we have to really realize here is that the security forces is doing their best, but they can only do so much if the political arena is utilizing the platform in a different way. And we have to be able to separate security forces from politics, and that's a very necessary evil to do.
You know, as you speak, we're seeing exercises, and in particular joint exercises by France's elite terrorism response units. And one of the objectives by the Interior Minister in announcing his security plan today was getting those various elite groups to work together, because there's been a history to some extent of rivalry between these groups here in France, and he wants to make sure they're on the same page. My question is does that also exist on a European level? Is there a need for elite response teams in France to coordinate with elite response teams in, say, Belgium, or are those things separate?
Well, everything, first of all, is separate. Everything is compartmented in different ways, not only in Belgium, but across most of European countries. The reason why ESETS was established, let me explain, and many people don't know this, was particularly to focus on bringing these factors together. But we find it very hard when the stakeholders is not willing to work with us. And the important part here is that they don't realize that at some point in time, they're all going to have to work together across the platform. So, the French is doing an excellent job in trying to get their feet off the ground. They're doing very well. So is the Belgians. But we are only scratching the surface. They have to realize at the same time that if they don't get a grip on things very soon, it could get very ugly in the future. And our prediction is that, we could already be past a certain point of no return.
All right, Ricardo Baretzky, thank you very much, President of the European Centre for Information Policy and Security. Thanks for fielding our questions this evening.
Welcome.